Hi everyone, I wanted to give you an overview of the designer options you've got available in Nintex Forms for Office 365. So this is my Office 365 site here, and I've got a task list which I'm going to open, and once it loads I'm going to select the Nintex Forms button in the ribbon. So when you're going to look at this, make sure you're running the latest version of the Nintex Forms app, because this designer selection screen has been updated with the latest version of the app. Now what you'll notice is you should see classic, responsive, or new responsive depending on when you're watching this video, because the new responsive designer is beginning to be rolled out very soon. So let's first go to the classic designer. Now the classic designer started in Nintex for SharePoint around 10 years ago, and it's still got the same look and feel that you would be familiar with in Nintex for SharePoint, but this is on Office 365. So we have the toolbox on the left hand side, we have our SharePoint controls, and also our list columns from our SharePoint list as well. So the SharePoint ones, list lookup, manage metadata, these are general controls that you can have as well. So the first thing you'll notice is there's a very small faint grid here, and the controls can really just snap around to anywhere on the grid. However, they can't move outside of the width of this form width here. So I can place that down there, and you'll notice it's 700 by 800 pixels wide. So now if I come to layout settings, I can actually change the height and the width, and also the grid size. I'm going to change this to 10. It just makes it a bit easier to place controls. So as you can see here, we've got a slightly bigger grid, and I can just snap and move those controls around. If I place a control down here, the controls just overlap and move around, but stay within that form width. Now if I was to open this up on a mobile phone, it wouldn't fit because it's going to be 800 pixels wide. It might be a bit too small depending on the resolution of the phone, but it's not going to be like a responsive form where it actually fits to the device size. Now if I wanted to be this on a mobile phone, I come to add more layouts, and I can add different layouts per device. Now that will actually copy all the controls and all the rules and all the logic, but it's just going to be that specific width and that specific height, as we can see here. So we won't go into rules or variables, that'll be for another video. But quickly go into form settings. You'll notice in here we do have the ability to do custom CSS and custom JavaScript. Now this does come with a warning to say that Nintex does not support custom JavaScript or custom CSS, even though you can do it inside the form. It's just so people that are brave enough, if they want to actually extend the capabilities, they can, but this functionality is being phased out over future designers. So now jumping across to the responsive designer. Now this responsive designer was built on top of the classic engine. So what you'll notice, it looks very similar, but what's happening is it now actually is a liquid display or a flexible display. By that I mean it's responsive and it'll fit to any screen size. So you no longer need to create layouts for the different devices. You just create one form with all the logic and all the rules and publish it, and it'll fit on any device because it is responsive. You'll notice that the toolbox and all the different options here and the design canvas options are all pretty much the same because it's the same engine, but just the behavior on top is a little bit different in the canvas. The other thing you'll notice in form settings, we've actually cleaned this up a lot. There's no longer any CSS or JavaScript as well. So the main goal of responsive is to be quick and easy to build a form. It doesn't matter on the device you're going to use it on. You can just drag your controls on and they move out of the way from each other. And it's very easy to build new controls. So if I say I want to build a rich text control, the other controls just snap out of the way. Drag on a date time control and just move out of the way. Whereas previously in the classic engine, they actually overlap, and you've got to make space for all the controls and really finesse the designer to make sure it all fits. Whereas here, it's just around ease of use, dragging things on and getting the job done. Doesn't matter on the device. All the functionality is pretty much the same as the classic engine, except for the CSS and JavaScript isn't there. Now let's go back and look at our latest designer offering, which is the new responsive designer. So this is the form designer that's come from Nintex Forms for Nintex Workflow Cloud. It's coming into Office 365. It'll also be running in Nintex Mobile. So if you build a new form on the new responsive designer and you push it to Nintex Mobile, it'll run the exact same engine. So what that means is, if we have a new form control appear in Nintex Forms for Nintex Workflow Cloud or Office 365, Nintex Mobile will also have that exact same control. If there's a new rule type, all three platforms will have the same rule. This engine will also be coming to Nintex for SharePoint as well. So all four platforms are running the exact same version of the code. So any changes, they'll all eventually get it. Now let's have a quick look at the changes you'll see in the new responsive designer. So here I can still drag controls around and snap them to a grid very, very simply and easily, and they all dodge out of the way. Got a few new controls like the email control, got a currency control, barcode scanner, and the geolocation control. The geolocation control also supports Google Maps APIs. So if you're using the Google Maps on a phone, it'll show the map, but also in the web, it'll also show Google Maps API if you've got an API key. The final one, which is really exciting, is the signature control. So now the signature control also supports signatures in the web. So that's a couple of the different changes you'll notice in the toolbox. You still have the SharePoint columns from your list, and also some of the SharePoint controls as well. People picker, manage metadata, and list lookup. What you'll also notice is preview is instant. So click on the preview and it immediately shows you the change, and you can go and test how your form's going to look in different modes. The style builder does not have custom CSS. We are now actually preferring to do clicks rather than code, so it makes it really, really simple and easy for you to style your form. The rule builder has changed quite a bit. We now have form load, input, and submit rules. And the logic, the way you build it, is very, very different to what you would be familiar with in the old designers. So it's really more natural language based. So the rule name, an if condition, you can do and conditions, or conditions, then conditions, with more ands in the then conditions, then also else conditions. So if you're reading a rule, it really makes sense and it's much easier to understand. Variables have also changed, so this is where we put our logic, our more advanced logic. I have type ahead, so I can go and find a formula. If I don't know what a formula is, I can come here and search for one. So convert to string, I think that's the one I want, and it's got contextual help to actually help me understand how to use that function as well. Settings has a few different things around regional settings and general settings around the form, as well as that Google Maps API I mentioned before. And also version control, which you have across all the designers. Now finally, the last piece that people get very excited about is the ability to add multiple pages to your form. So that's a quick overview of all three designers. Hopefully that helps you to make a decision. Now the one thing that I would call out is the only designer that lets you to have JavaScript and CSS is the classic engine. Now with the old responsive designer, that will become that will be replaced by this designer eventually. It won't happen immediately, but it will have an option in the designer for you to convert from the old responsive designer to the new responsive designer. Now that won't happen when this design is released. It'll be released sometime after this new designer has been released. So we have the classic, we have the old responsive, and also the new responsive coming very soon, which will allow you to convert your old responsive to the new responsive. If you've got any questions, have a look in the community, ask me some questions, and hopefully you have success with the new responsive designer. Cheers.